Job lived a life that silenced all doubt. His house was solid. His word was gold. His name commanded a silence of profound respect. He moved quietly, without a need for an audience. He kept his faith close to his chest, knowing that truth requires no witnesses. Every morning, he simply rose and did the work, tending to the land, to his people, to his children. When the family gathered, he prayed for them, not out of fear, but out of a deep sense of duty. He understood love always carries a heavier burden than required, or never bargained with God. He sought no rewards and used his faith for nothing but devotion. He had it all: wealth, family, peace, yet he held it all with a loose grip, knowing that everything he owned was a gift, not a right. His life was steady, free from the frantic urge to control the future. To him, faith was who you are when the world is not watching. If the story ended here, it would be forgotten, just another tale of a fortunate man. But the real story begins only when the world is stripped away and it becomes clear. He is not holding on to his blessings, he is holding on to his soul. The sky remains silent, no thunder, no divine signs. The most profound decisions are made without fanfare. There was no blinding light, only a conversation, dry and precise like an autopsy. The question was not about Job himself. It was about the very nature of faith. The accuser admitted Job's righteousness, but he looked deeper, speaking the words that always seek to devalue trust. He believes only because he is comfortable. The house is full, the children are safe, the name is honored. He lives in a fortress of security. Strip away the protection, him without a foundation, and his faith will vanish. Loyalty built on abundance cannot survive the void. The logic was chilling. It is the same logic we use every day when we say, it is easy to believe when life is good. God did not argue. He did not defend. He simply allowed the test. No comments, no conditions, no promises. This was no punishment. This was a permission to strip away everything external to see what remained, because true trust is only visible when there is nothing left to sustain it. In that moment, the trial began, not for Job, but for the very concept of faith. Does it exist on its own, or is it merely a reflection of the gifts we receive? It all vanished in a single day, abruptly, all at once, giving him no time to adjust. The first messenger burst in, breathless, dust on his face, voice trembling. The herds are gone. The servants are slaughtered. The strike was lightning fast. Job still trying to grasp the loss, searching for a way to save what remained. But the second was already there, shouting over him. Fire fell from the heavens. The sheep are ash. The earth is still smoking. In that second, Job realized this was no accident. This was a tide that could not be turned. The third entered the courtyard, his face white as bone. The wind struck without warning. The house collapsed. The children were inside, every single one. No one escaped. No one had time to scream. Silence followed, for there is nothing left to say. Job stood. He did not fall. He did not cry out. He did not cry out. His body was numb to the impact. His mind was too slow to assemble the ruins. When everything is stripped away in an instant, the pain consumes you whole, without shape or name, where there were no breathers. No time to sit and decide what to mourn first. Grief arrived as a landslide, burying the house, the future, and the meaning beneath it. This day did not ask if he was ready. It simply arrived. This is how a life breaks, not when something leaves, but when everything leaves at once, leaving you no time to realize who you have become after the dust settles. When it all ended, there was only silence, not because the pain had left, but because there was nothing left to fall. Job collapsed onto the earth, hard, flat. Like a man whose foundation was suddenly ripped away, he tore his robes, not as a gesture, but as an act of survival. His body was screaming for an outlet for the agony within. Dust clung to his skin. His hands shook. He was silent for a long time, so long that the silence became heavier than speech. This was not the silence of submission or a pause for a dramatic line. This was the silence of a man trying to find where his life begins. when everything he knew ended in a single day. When he spoke, it was not a comfort. It was a statement of fact. He said he came into this world with nothing, and he leaves this moment with nothing, without a home, without children, without the future he had built. He did not say it was easy. He did not say he understood. He simply stared reality in the face. And that was his first true act of faith. Not believing that everything is for the best, but believing that you can show your pain and still stand alive before God. The pain entered him without warning. His body stopped being a home. It became a place of torment. His skin burned, cracked, broke into sores. Every breath felt like an attack, as if he were being flayed alive, inch by inch. He sat in the ashes, not for tradition, but for the coolness. The ash was the only thing that could dull the fire. Scraped his skin with a shard of pottery, a desperate attempt to endure the skin he lived in. His hands no longer obeyed him. The pain had no shape. It was everywhere. People watched from a distance. They turned away. Job's body became a warning, a grim example of what happens to those who stand too long before God. He was alone, in total, physical isolation, where no one dared to touch him. No one dared to look him in the eye. In that moment became clear. Faith was no longer a concept or a word. Faith became the skin that ached, the body that suffered, and a life that offered no shelter. She approached him not as an enemy, but as someone who could no longer bear to watch. Her voice was soft, broken, filled with a soul-crushing exhaustion. She looked at what remained of her husband and questioned the purpose of it all. Why go on? Why breathe if every breath is a blade? Why hold on to your integrity when everything you loved is dust? Those words cut deeper than the disease because they came from the one who shared his life. Job listened. He did not argue. He saw not weakness in her, but a human being pushed to the edge, and yet he stayed his ground. He answered quietly, without grand gestures. Life does not end where joy expires. Trust does not vanish when the gifts are taken away. He knew if he surrendered his meaning now, the pain would conquer more than his flesh. It would devour his heart. At that moment, the truth was revealed. The hardest blows come from the people we love, from those who speak out of despair, only because they no longer know how to coexist with your agony. They arrived, and at first did the only right thing. They sat beside him and stayed silent. 7 days of silence were more honest than any words. This pain could not yet be explained. It could only be endured. But the silence broke, and in its place came phrases, polished, rational, far too familiar. They spoke of order, of justice, of a world where nothing happens without a cause. They looked at Job, trying to reclaim their own sense of safety. They needed an explanation so that his suffering would not become a threat to their own lives. And then, the core message emerged. You are at fault. Perhaps not at first. Perhaps wrapped in concern and logic, but the meaning was clear. If you are suffering, you must have done something wrong. It is an easier way to live, a more comfortable way to witness another's agony. Job listened and realized these words were not about him at all. They were about the fear of those standing by. Because to admit that suffering can be causeless is to admit that one day it could come for you, and that is why people prefer to explain the pain rather than share it. Then Job could no longer endure the silence within. He raised his voice, not against God but towards him. No pious masks, no rehearsed formulas, no fear of being too bold. He did not seek excuses. He did not beg for comfort. He demanded meaning. He spoke directly, sharply, with raw humanity. His pain had reached a breaking point where silence felt like a lie. He did not curse. He did not walk away. He looked up and asked, "Why? What for? Why must it be this way?" His words were jagged, visceral, sometimes angry, always desperate. But there was zero pretense in them. He stopped pretending to be strong. He stopped faking acceptance. In that exact moment, his faith became real. Because he chose to stay in the conversation, even when the rewards, the protection, and the logic were gone. It turned out that faith is not a silence without questions. It is the courage to speak the truth, even when there is no answer in sight. After the cry, nothing happened. The sky did not open. The voice did not answer. The pain did not recede. Job remained exactly where he was, on the ground, in the ashes, alone with his suffering and his questions. The days moved slowly, far too slowly. Every morning began without a sign. Every evening ended without an explanation. Waiting became heavy and thick, like the air before a storm. The silence weighed more than words, for it offered no comfort and no justification. There was only a presence, impossible to prove and impossible to deny. In this silence, the real battle was fought, to leave or to stay, to shut down or to wait. Faith in that moment was no longer a conversation. It became a choice, to stand before the silence and refuse to run, to accept the pause as a space where God has not vanished, but is holding the man in absolute stillness. The voice arrived without warning. It rose from the heart of the storm, from the rush of air and a power that owes no explanation. The Creator spoke. Yet he remained silent about the cause of the pain. Instead, he revealed the foundations of the earth and the heavens, the depths of the oceans and the paths of the stars. He displayed a world that lives far beyond the boundaries of human agony. In those words, Job ceased to be the center of his own story. He became part of a vast design, one that anchors the mountains and commands time itself. His questions transformed. Instead of an answer, he witnessed magnitude. Instead of a reason, he saw order. Job realized, meaning does not always arrive as a clear explanation. Sometimes it comes as the sudden awareness of one's place inside a life that is greater than suffering and deeper than understanding. Though Job stood in the silence following the storm, something within him shifted, not broken, but finally aligned. He saw the boundary clearly now, between what can be learned and what can only be experienced. Wherefore God was just words to him, traditions, perfect formulas. Now he was a reality, too vast to be contained by human logic. Job realized not his insignificance, but his true scale. He ceased his demands for answers. He stopped defending his righteousness, for he saw that the encounter itself is deeper than being right. There was no shame in this clarity, no pretense, only a quiet admission. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. This knowledge no longer argues. It does not bargain. It simply stands and breathes in the light of the truth. Life began to return to Job quietly, in gradual steps, day by day, breath by breath. Voices filled his home once more, the laughter of children, the warmth of a touch. The simple rhythm of the morning. His body surrendered its pain. It became a sanctuary again. The earth beneath his feet felt solid, no longer a threat. He lived on without demands, without seeking compensation for his loss. Everything that returned, his house, his children, his health, arrived as a natural flow. This was not a wage for his endurance, nor a prize for his patience. It was the inevitable renewal of a man who stayed alive in his soul. This return was not the end of the story, but its calm and profound continuation. We believe as long as faith provides meaning, a foundation, and results, as long as it is validated by success, by health, and by clear signs, we are willing to follow God as long as we understand the why and see the where. But at the exact moment when faith stops being useful, when the explanations vanish, when there is no reward, no support, and zero guarantees, one ultimate question remains, one that cannot be bypassed and cannot be softened. If your faith gives you absolutely nothing, who do you become then?